In this section, which is our 12.1, we're on page 108 book, we'll start looking at quadratic equations, and we'll do this in both our 12.1 and our 12.2. A quadratic equation has an x squared in the equation and no exponents that are higher than that x squared. So which of these are quadratic? Well, A is, B is not because there's no x squared in it. C is not because there's no x squared in it. D is because of this x squared. Now E has an x squared, but it has an x cubed. It has an exponent that's higher than it, so it's not. X squared has to be the highest exponent. Standard form of a quadratic equation has the x squared first, and then the x, and then the number, and it equals 0. So we need to write this in standard form and then find A, B, and C. So we need to have the x squared first, and it is, and then the x, and it is, and then the number, and it is, and then it equals 0, and it does. So then A is the number that's in front of the x squared, B is the number that's in front of the x, and we need to include the sign with it, and C is a number that doesn't have an x, the constant. So now we need to write this in standard form. So we need the x squared first, so here's the x squared. We need to keep the sign that's in front of it with it, and then the x, so that's positive, 8x, so plus 8x, and then the number, and then equals 0. And then so A is the number in front of x squared, B is the number in front of x, and C is the number that's by itself. Okay, here, so we need to have the x squared first, and then the x, and then the number. Now there's no number that doesn't have an x. It does already equal 0. So this is standard form. Now you may want to think about it like this so that you can see that number here at the end. But we just leave it like this for standard form. But it tells us A is 2 because that's in front of the x squared. B is negative 5 because that's in front of the x. And C is 0 because there isn't a number that doesn't have an x. Okay, so here we have to have the x squared first, and it is, but it needs to equal 0, and it does not right now. So let's subtract 25 from both sides. So remember when we do that, we need to just read the left-hand side exactly like we see it. X squared minus 25, and that will make it equal 0. So now this is standard form, but you may want to think about it like this because there's no x written there. And that allows us to see that A is 1, B is 0, and C is negative 25. So this one is already in standard form, equals 0, and then the exponents get smaller from left to right. But again, we may want to think about it like this. There's no B term, there's no x, so it would be 0x. So that tells me A is 1, B is 0, and C is negative 5. One more. So we want to write this in standard form. So the first thing is that it's not equal to 0. We need to subtract 6 from both sides. When we do that, we get 4x squared minus 5x minus 6 equals 0. And now it's in standard form. So A is 4, B is negative 5, and C is negative 6. And this all will be very important in the next section that we be able to put it into standard form and find our A, B, and C.